So I'd like to bring the October 12th meeting of the Blue Horizons Committee. Let me move my computer so it's looking at the screen. That's better. The Blue Horizons Committee Community Council. I'm Keith Bamberger and I'm the chair of the committee. And today I would like all of the community council voting members to introduce themselves. But when you introduce yourself, I want you to think about something that, you know, on a society level or on a big level, brought everybody together. And one of those events for me is the eclipse that happened in August 11th of 2018. And it was really cool. For me, I went and spent time with, it was great because we only had to travel to Silva. I spent time with a teacher that I know there and all of her relatives and a whole bunch of her friends. So we were in her pasture next to her chickens, and there were cows at the end, and to watch the eclipse. But it was amazing how everybody, at least in Western North Carolina, came together. And it's one of those events that I'm going to remember forever. So I want you to think about some event, and you can share your story of the eclipse if you'd like, because it was pretty significant to me. But as you introduce yourself, just some sort of event like that in the past. And I will just call people out as they are on my screen. So Dave, that means you're first because you're left upright.
Okay. The thing that comes to mind for me, I'm Dave Erb. I'm an automotive engineer with a specialty in electric and hybrid electric vehicles. But the thing that comes to mind for me is Hurricane Hugo. My wife and I had been married about 3 months when Hugo hit Charlotte and took down 10% of the tree cover and closed all the roads. And our apartment complex didn't have power for 11 days. And it was actually a very cool community building event. People would get together. I had camping stoves, so people would come over to our place for coffee and things like that. As bad as it sounds, it was really a neat event.
Cool, thank you. Phelps, are you ready?
Sure, yeah. Hey, I'm Phelps Clark with Pisgah Energy, and I remember the time that they retired the last coal-fired power plant in the world, and it was really it was significant. Oh wait, that didn't happen yet, but we're getting there.
Jeffrey?
Hi, everyone. A good prompt, Keith. I'm Jeffrey Barton with Mountain Housing Opportunities. You know, one that comes to mind for me, I haven't been to a concert in forever because I have a 1-year-old and because of COVID, but Downtown Leaf, and I think it was 2015 when Bootsy Collins was the headliner, was one of the biggest, most special community events I can remember, because it's the first time since, and maybe the only time since I've been in Asheville, that you could look around and the age range of the audience was tremendous. Young people, old people, and the diversity of the audience was tremendous. And it's, you know, I just haven't been to many big events in Asheville that felt quite so diverse on every level. So yeah, that was a good one.
Thank you, Jeffrey. David?
David King, Energy Manager at Western Carolina. I would say COVID, just for the simple fact, we have daughter 6 and all our school kind of went out the window. So we had to pull together, 4 or 5 families and hire a teacher and all kind of work together to cover when the teacher couldn't be there, and kind of went from being really independent to kind of interdependent. So that was kind of community, not just in a feel-good way, but just total reliance and get to know our neighbors better. So.
Thank you, David. Jason?
Hey, thanks, Keith. And I'm not in a very private location today, so I'm going to keep my video off just to respect just some stuff going on behind me. So I'm Jason Wallace with Duke Energy, and my moment was the first time that I ever visited Yellowstone National Park in the dead of winter when it was completely frozen. There's something about the peace of a frozen landscape that's just pretty special.
Excellent. Michelle?
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm also no camera today. I have to do something with my computer, updated or something. I'm not sure why it's not working, but my moment that brought everyone together. I was working on a political campaign, and it was late October, when people are very divisive and everyone's out with their signs and their buttons and making a big stink. And the city I was in won the World Series. And all of a sudden, everyone was hugging, and people with, this city council member sign and that city council member sign. We're just happy to be together. And everyone was out in the streets, and kids were out in the streets. It was one of those times also when the franchise hadn't won in decades. So people were very excited. Yeah, it was a good time.
Cool. Ken?
You say Sam or Tim?
I said Ken.
Ken. Oh. Can I hear? Oh, yeah.
I don't believe Ken Nelson is on unless I'm missing him.
No. Okay. Brownie? So Brownie, if you're speaking, your mic is muted.
Hey, sorry. Hey, this is Brownie. Hope it's coming through okay. The thing I think about is kind of dating myself here, but going back to a campaign I worked on back in like around 2000 when we were working to pass the North Carolina Clean Smokestacks Act to require the coal-fired power plants in the state to put pollution controls on them. And it was this long campaign, and but it was kind of back in a time when people did kind of come together, like, and it wasn't as partisan in a lot of ways as things seem today. And although it took like 3 years to get this bill passed, like when it finally did, passed like the state legislature with like one person voting against it, and like everyone figured out a way to get behind it and support it. So that was really cool to see after, the fact that it worked and everyone eventually really realized that this is something that they all really agreed on, and it made a big difference.
Thank you, Brownie. I was actually just talking, Secretary Beiser was in the DEQ office today, and she mentioned that next year it's the 20th anniversary, and she wants the Division of Air Quality and the Department of Environmental Quality to do something to bring people back together. So we'll talk about that later.
That sounds great.
All right. I think I got all the voting members. If anybody else,
Chris.
if anybody else would really like to share, feel free to unmic yourself, or we can just get into the body of our meeting.
Keith, I think you missed Chris, who's
Oh.
also.
You're right. Chris.
I wasn't aware I was a voting member, but that sounds great. Hey everyone, Chris Pellerine here. I missed the intro, Keith, as to what the moment was that you were asking people to describe, but
Just something where everybody came together.
where everyone came together. For me, it was the Women's March here in Nashville. I got to take my kids there when they were newborns, and seeing again the diversity of folks there to work with that cause was really wonderful. And I'm sure my kids don't remember a lick of it, but it was certainly inspiring to be there and see all the other new families participating in that. So yeah, good to be here. Thanks.
Excellent. All right, so let's start moving into the meeting. And of course, first thing on the agenda is discussing and approving the September 21st meeting minutes. And hope everybody got a chance to review them. Before we move to approve, is there any discussion about the minutes? Don't see any hands up. So I would like somebody to motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
And I'll second.
So we have a motion from Jeffrey, Dave, motion seconded. So let's all vote by giving it a thumbs up in our reaction. All right, great.
All right, action.
So the motion, the meetings for the September meeting have been approved. As we move on into new business, we have multi-family energy efficiency from Jeffrey.
Thanks, Keith. And I won't take up too much of the time on the agenda today. This was something I brought up in September, and Sophie was kind enough to chat with me about some details. So a few things I wanted to share, and I'll put the caveat on that I'm, by no means an energy efficiency expert. There's probably people on this call who are way more qualified in the details of different certification programs than I am. But my purpose in bringing this up with this group is to take a look at some of the local policies and programs and Duke incentives and how they overlap in the multifamily space, and what we might do as a group to kind of further embed energy efficiency in the approval and construction of multifamily in our community. So that's kind of the purpose. If I could share my screen, let's see. Cool. So one thing I wanted to just share with you all is a program that's in the Buncombe County zoning ordinance that Mountain Housing Opportunities has utilized once, and a few other projects have used as well, called the Community-Oriented Development Policy. And what this does is it allows developers by right to increase the density allowed on their site by 250%. And that, is obviously a huge benefit to developers trying to build more densely in areas of the county that may not, allow such high density in the underlying zoning. And a couple of the bulk of the program is built around affordable housing. You can obviously see the maximum points that you can get. You really start to get the ability to do a more dense project by providing affordable housing units. But there's other categories as well. And the way the program's structured is you cannot just get points in one category. You have to get points in, I think, at least 2 different categories. So environment transit is another category that you can get points. The easy and big target is if you build within a certain, here it is, proximity to transit routes, you can get 50 points towards your goal of 250. But also in this category is an acknowledgement of our alternative energy sources. So you can get 10 points for doing 10% of your project's energy needs from alternative sources, and you can get 25 points for participation in Energy Star. I just checked with the county planning folks today, and so far no developer has gotten these points because I think there's just other categories that are easier to get. So, that's something that I think the county is going to be looking at probably in their comp plan process is, is there some way to restructure this program or reallocate points to maybe further incentivize energy? But, this is an opportunity that we could, see if there's potential to further incentivize renewable energy that's not currently being utilized. And I bring up the county. There's other points in the process I think would be good to intervene right. Tomorrow the Board of Adjustment is looking at, I think, 740 apartments and 3 different projects all around Arden. All market rate. There might be some affordable units sprinkled in, but I'm not entirely sure. But pretty unlikely that those developers are pursuing an energy certification or solar because they're not compelled to do so. So that's one program. And then within the city of Asheville, there's the land use incentive grant policy that just recently had an update in June. And that, again, it's kind of a point matrix system. Also, you get a lot of points for affordable housing. This is actually a financial incentive to developers in the form of a rebate on increased property taxes. So this program allows you to take your present property taxes and sort of fix it instead of having to pay increased property taxes on a new development that would generate higher property taxes. You can lock in the current property tax value in exchange for providing beneficial things back to the community, such as affordable housing. So here again, there's some energy efficiency. I asked today for some clarification to the city on solar panels. That's just one way to get points, but there's no details on size of system or anything like that. Interestingly, the last 3 projects that have been proposed for a land use incentive grant, one of them is doing Energy Star, one of them is doing Energy Star and solar panels, and then the third one is doing Energy Star and solar panels. So in this policy of the city, they are finding that developers are seeing that the incentive justifies an investment in renewable energy. But again, no clarity yet on what further requirements the city has on solar panels beyond, could you do 1 panel and call it a day, or do you need to generate a meaningful amount of your project's energy through solar? So those are kind of the 2 programs I wanted to highlight that we could potentially as a group help craft revisions to maybe catalyze greater impact among the multifamily developers. The other one that's kind of a big pet project of mine is greater adoption of Duke's EnergyWise program. We at Mountain Housing pre-install EnergyWise devices, but there's no incentive to do so as a landlord. The bill credit goes to the eventual renters. And so, without any leverage or incentive to the developer, it's an opportunity that's getting missed among the market rate multifamily developers right now. And so that's something that I think we could take a look at further with the city, the county, and Duke. That's really all I've got, but I'm happy to, answer questions or, make this a topic for some further discussion.
Thanks so much, Jeffrey, for answering the call to present today. I think I'm interested in hearing from the county on what we can do to incentivize more energy efficiency in multifamily buildings and what's been thought of and what's possible. If there's anything in the works. I'm not sure if Brownie or Jeremiah.
Yeah. Hey, this is Brownie. Yeah, so as Jeffrey explained, there's some policies there, but there's not a lot of uptake on them from the clean energy standpoint. Has been used some on the affordable housing side by MHO, and so I think it's I think there's some good ideas there. I don't think the programs are turning out to be particularly powerful from a policy standpoint to move a lot of the development pipeline that comes through our permitting offices to use it. So obviously, I think it needs to be looked at in terms of like, well, what would it take to to make this more commonly used? We are going through this comp plan process. I think all those kind of questions will get looked at really hard through that process. And so I think the ideas are good. I just think the policies we have in place right now are not powerful enough. We either need stronger incentives, or to some extent, I mean, we can't really require these things because we can't technically require things that are above and beyond the state building code when it comes to energy efficiency. But there are things the county could do that could be, could incent things so strongly that it would be, I think they would be utilized much more often. And there's we don't have to go into all the details of that, but I think that's kind of what the next steps in this would be. So I'd really encourage, this group to think about those kind of ideas and engage in the comp plan process that's starting now to really encourage there's like a community steering committee that's been put together. So to encourage those folks, as well as the county staff who are working on it, and the consultants who are working on the process, to all really focus on those kinds of ideas, because we're growing a lot. I've read something like a third of all the homes and buildings in Buncombe County in like 25 years from now will be new buildings, right? Are yet to be built. So we need to make them as clean energy oriented as possible.
Thanks, Brownie. I had a question about the energy-wise installations. Is there any cost to a builder to put those in, or?
Zero cost. There's a little coordination that needs to happen, that, getting Duke's contractor in to install the devices, but it's far easier in multifamily to do it before initial occupancy than it is after, when the renter then has to track down the landlord and get landlord signature for approval, and then also coordinate with the maintenance caretaker to get the Duke contractor into the space to install the device. So yeah, getting them pre-installed is the way to go. And it also then puts the onus on the renter. They can opt out if they choose to, but no one does, because they get a nice bill credit every year for being enrolled in the program. I think one of the challenges, and Jason may know way better than I do on how the program is working in multifamily, but there's just no real incentive for multifamily developers. Even the $0 cost is not enough. Developers aren't getting an incentive, and so the coordination complexity might make it, and bringing in a contractor that's not under the control of the general contractor onto your job site creates some issues. So it's not difficult, but it's just not happening, I think.
It really seems like something, I mean, awareness can go some distance, but of course, there's no way to make them do it. But that seems like something we should talk about further. If there's any way we can incentivize that.
One other idea I had on the county zoning side, it seems like a lot of the Board of Adjustment variance requests coming in are really on height limitations and underlying zoning, because you can get, the density you need for most multifamily projects, but there are still these underlying height restrictions. And potentially, what if we allowed by right to have a waive a height limitation if you did rooftop solar? That I think could be a way to creatively incentivize renewable energy.
Cool. Thank you, Jeffrey. Are there any other questions? Comments?
think it's all well and good to talk about what's possible, but what are like some actionable steps that we can make? So whoops, am I talking over someone? Is that on my end? Is everybody on? Okay.
I think it's Brian. We're not getting anything to say about it, but now.
Okay, and we lost him. Anyway, I wanted to just make sure this conversation continues and some action actually results out of this, because I think this is incredibly important.
Yeah, I think that engaging in our comp plan is going to be a huge way for us to really sort of guide future development in Buncombe County. I can't tell you, this is like a once in a career opportunity for somebody like me. So it really is that big of a thing, and you really need to engage. I can also say that we have already talked to our consultants about this, and that you all, most of you, work for an organization that's on the list for our consultants to call and interview about this. But don't just sit and wait for that. Show up at these meetings and participate, because the more vocal we are about this stuff, the more that these things are likely to end up being a permanent part of how we move forward. So again, just sort of echoing what Brownie said about that, it's really, really critical to get as much community input as possible. I mean, we're even going to elementary schools and getting feedback from kids. You know, like we want this to be as comprehensive of a process and as inclusive of a process as we possibly can. And I'm happy to be a conduit between this group and the things that are going on with the comp plan to a degree. Again, it's all, there's even a newsletter you can sign up for, and I'll send that link to everybody if they want to do that, so you can kind of keep up with when things are happening, what's going on. But it's the opportunity, I think, to be involved and be a part of creating policy moving forward that really shifts the way we build into the future. So.
Hey, I was just going to add, there was a group out of App State many years ago, about 10 years back when I was there, called the North Carolina Energy Efficiency Alliance. And their whole focus was promoting Energy Star homes. And really, the head of it was a builder himself, Chuck Perry. And they were making inroads, kind of educating builders about the whole process of getting Energy Star homes, working with realtors to green the MLS, to get Energy Star scores on there. I think the funding is since kind of defunct. It was old ARA money, but I'll reach out to Chuck to kind of see where that's at and what kind of resources, because instead of having to try to recreate the wheel, just be kind of curious to see where that's at. That's the link I dropped in there, but it's the webpage looks like the last thing was from 2010. So
Yeah, Michelle.
Yeah, I wanted to get a sense from Jeremiah about what would be most useful from this body to inform the process. And we could all show up to meetings as individuals, but is there something that might be, could we put policy recommendations down in a formal letter, or, would it be something have more weight or be able to be interpreted more clearly if it was maybe thought about in advance and maybe even voted on by this group, or is that kind of not how the process is going to work? And then if the answer is yes, what would be the timetable for that kind of thing?
Yeah, super good question, because we literally just had our kickoff meeting for the comp plan yesterday. So and this is a multi-year process. So nothing needs to happen like tomorrow. And I'm trying to actually get the link to the newsletter sign up for you guys so you can see what's going on. Put it in the chat. Oops. Let's put that up. Because that's what I do. All right. It's in the chat. So everybody sign up and get that. So I would say that there are going to be specific points of interaction for various groups that have various targeted outreach, I guess you could say, right? So I would say that if this group has or wants to have specific thoughts on comp plan initiatives, get those together and take those to the specific meeting points, right? So that we can talk about them in detail. I can also give you the contact information. There's a specific environmental consultant that's a sub for our main comp plan contractor. And so they're going to be probably the primary point of contact for a lot of the stuff that we're going to want to discuss. I don't have a ton of information because, again, we literally just started this process like yesterday. But I will continue to keep you guys updated, send you information. Please sign up for the newsletter. And as opportunities present themselves for this group to interact, I will do my best to make sure that we know about them and have enough time to gather our thoughts and sort of coalesce around some specific issues that we want to bring to the table. At this point, it's early enough in the process. That's about all I can say. But it's a really good question, and don't stop bugging me about it because I got a million things going on. so you know, poke me every once in a while and just say, hey, what's the status? You know, keep me honest on this stuff.
Thank you, Jeremiah. We may put you on the agenda sometimes. And it is one of those things where I think we should think about, because it is such a great opportunity to form, not that we need more committees, but at some point, maybe an ad hoc committee or a group of people to meet together to discuss how we can be a part of that process, because, you know, buildings are a big part of energy, and this is a big part of the buildings. So do we have any additional thoughts about this point? I'm trying to get all the people on one screen so I can see if anybody's raised their hands. All right. Well, next part of the agenda is actually we have expanded solar and public buildings from Brownie. I do not see him on the screen. I think we may have lost him. And
Why don't we move on and come back when he's back?
that sounds like a good plan. So the next item on the agenda is the membership process. And so you should all have received, Sophie set out a copy of the membership document on September 20th. And the memo was the result of, I think we met 3 times as the membership committee, maybe 4 since February. And in the bylaws, it gives the, or in the charter, it gives the responsibility of the community council members to fill in the membership roles and to add new members. So this document would be perhaps our first bylaw. It just kind of goes into a little bit more detail about that process. We've had some practice because we've added 2 people to the membership since February. Did everybody have a chance to review that document? And are there any comments or discussions on that document from the council or the other people who are here? Say yes, no, maybe.
Michelle raised her hand.
Okay, Michelle.
Hey, I was wondering if we would entertain a friendly amendment. Let me pull this up. I have it in my many docs here. When interviewing new members, we ask about their experience with renewable energy and energy efficiency. And I understand of course, obviously that's core to our mission. A lot of times in nonprofits, when we're talking about diversification and valuing skills of other folks as a necessary part of, you know, folks who aren't at the table now may not have that experience, but maybe their specific knowledge of a community or how to run community engagement programs. Maybe they did something with food or a food co-op that really reached the people that needed it most. And what we really need is their expertise in how to reach those parts of the community that maybe people who are expert in building efficiency, maybe haven't done that or haven't reached as broad of a clientele. So I wonder if we might also include something in here about other skills that we might be looking for, namely policy implementation and community outreach and engagement, either as a D under that particular section. So it'll be another bullet point, or, as a part 2 of that same section.
Sounds like a very good idea to me.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I'm all for keeping the amount of extra verbiage as minimal as possible. So why don't we put that in as an item D?
Yeah, it's almost like what, area of expertise do you have that is going to bring needed value to the committee, the community council?
So that seems good. And I think that was a good way to state it, Phelps. What other values do you have? Because it's not all just about energy efficiency. What values will help the council meet its goals? So I think we're in agreement that we should add something like that. They're not the specific words. So my question is, do we want to, well, there may be other points of discussion, but is that something we want to have written down before we vote on this policy? Or do we want to vote on the policy with the intention of adding that, which is easy enough to do? So I saw Dave's thumb that he agrees with adding it later, voting on the policy now. Does that make sense? It's hard to see people nod on the computer.
I can make a motion to approve with that amendment, if that helps.
That's a good way to put it. Is there any other discussion points before we move to approve or not approve? All right, so
I'll second Michelle's motion.
okay, great. So let's vote with a thumbs up, either in person or virtually.
Eyes have it.
And if anybody opposed? All right, so we have approved the membership process. Great. And item D, the social get together. It was really great to see everybody, 2 weeks ago, get to see people in person, have some discussions. And we thought, while we were planning this meeting, that it would be a good thing to do that every other month, especially during the time of COVID, just so we can get to see each other in person, have side discussions, things like that. Everybody agree that that's a good way to move forward, something we want to do? Great. So we'll continue to set those up.
Yeah, I'll
Gotcha.
set them up happily. And if there's any suggestions on locations, I know that, West Asheville breweries are not always the most convenient for everyone. So I think hopping around to different parts of town would be great. So send me a recommendation and I'll schedule the next one.
Thank you, Sophie. So are there any other additional comments before we move into the committee and standing program reports?
So Brownie says his internet is not working, and he's asking if Jeremiah can do his update before we move to the next section.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, happy to. So I'll give you a short version because it's something you all have heard before. But as you know, we have, as the county and in partnership with the city and AB Tech and some other organizations, did a pretty robust aggregated rooftop solar RFP. It's going on over like a year ago now. And we managed to get essentially about in the neighborhood of 40 plus projects funded, and we're in the works right now. They're under construction as we speak. And actually we have some of our systems finally up and running, which is just amazing. Like, it's been a culmination of a lot of hard work and a lot of time. And as a sort of next step to this process, when we originally did this, one of the biggest property owners in all of Buncombe County is the Buncombe County school system. And we only really targeted a few of their facilities because there was already a process that was kind of underway with them, where they had looked at some facilities already and sort of had some low-hanging fruit in terms of, you know, potential opportunities for them. And they were not in a place where they were very comfortable doing rooftop systems. They really primarily wanted to do ground-mounted systems where they had open land next to schools that they didn't think was going to be needed anytime soon. So most of the systems we did for the school system were ground-mounted systems for county schools anyway. And of course, county schools have, I think, 44 schools, and it's a large school system. We didn't do any rooftops really, so we feel like there's a lot left on the table for continuing to work with the county school systems to look at solar on their facilities. And so, as the county, we indirectly sort of pay their utilities already. You know, it's one of the reasons we looked at doing this initially. We pay their bills. The only thing we really don't pay for when it comes to school systems is like teachers' salaries, but all the rest of it comes through us. We manage all their construction. We cover their utilities in their annual budget requests. So it only made sense financially to look at these opportunities as well, frankly, because long term, you know, this last aggregated round of projects estimates to save, you know, upwards of $15 million for the life of these systems after having paid off the debt we issued to do the systems, right? So we think it makes a lot of financial sense, as well as obviously we've got some big ambitious renewable energy goals as a community, not just as a local government internally. So we're going for another round, basically, is the short version. So we've started the process. We've had an initial meeting with the school systems, the superintendent, some of the board members, some of our board members, and gotten the initial thumbs up to at least start the process of reviewing the next potential round of schools that might go into another aggregated RFP. Now, this might, I'm not at this point able to say whether that's 5 schools or 15 schools or 25 schools. We really don't know that. There are a lot of schools that, while they do use a lot of energy, they also need roof repairs, right? And so, you know, we have to sort of sync up the need for these capital improvements in other places with the opportunities for solar. But one of the things we've also talked about during that initial meeting was, can we continue to sync up that process on an annual basis, where as roofs get replaced, it's in our CIP, our capital improvement plan, to continue doing these projects as roofs get replaced. So there's the potential for like one more big round and then continual, you know, processes to keep us going, getting solar on schools, right? So we're just starting the process. And in fact, we just did an RFP for that initial design services and stuff. And so, you know, we'll see when that comes back. But the idea would be, in general, to potentially have these ready to go out to bid as soon as like next summer, when our fiscal year starts again. Again, I won't make any promises to that. These things take time. And, you know, nothing moves faster than the speed of government, but we'll do our best keep this group up to speed with that. But it's a pretty exciting development. This first round went really well. We got a lot of work done. It's very exciting. It's a whole lot of work. I am definitely going to put in for another staff person because I'm drowning managing, all of these projects and stuff. So thank goodness I have a great construction management team here at the county who does a lot of heavy lifting. But that's pretty much it. We'll keep you up to speed with that process and let you know what's going on. But we expect to have another round of solar projects ready to go in the next, 7, 8, 9 months. And it would be great to have, when the opportunity presents itself and we bring these things to our board of commissioners to say, we've got this opportunity, we need to fund it. Groups like this, showing up to those meetings and providing that public feedback really do help sort of move the needle, right? And so, we'll let you know when those opportunities present themselves too. It's a very exciting development and we'll keep you up to speed. That's pretty much it.
Hey, Jeremiah, this is Jason. You touched on the question I was going to ask, but I do know that the county schools have been going somewhat school by school doing new roofs on various schools. Would the thought be to kind of go back over the last 3 to 5 years and try to have very specific conversations about the ones that are already complete, and then look at the schools plan for this year and the next couple of years to try to say, since it's already in the work to do this, while we're doing it, let's also do the analysis for solar on the roof. Is that the idea?
You nailed it. Yeah, that's exactly right. We'll look at, the School Capital Fund Commission is where they get most of their money to do capital improvement projects. And so we'll definitely look back at the last 3 to 5 years and say, okay, well, we know that there's been new roofs because they ask for new roofs every year. Like that's just a part of the standard procedure, right? So we'll look at those and see where the low hanging fruit is for those that are new and ready to go. But then we'll look at like, what is that plan going forward, right? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road. And in fact, one of the things that I think it's just, sort of the way you play the game. One of the carrots we can kind of dangle is, they're really desperate to get some of these roofs done, and roofs are very expensive on schools. I mean, you're talking sometimes $1 million or more to do a roof on a school. And, can we potentially move them up in the calendar, to marry up these processes? And that's a carrot that, like, when we said something like that, we got big saucer eyes from the maintenance department there. They were like, please, can we get some of these roofs done early? Because they're already making 20-year roofs last 30 years. I mean, they're doing the best they can, but they're really working hard at this. So I think you nailed it. I think that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Is there any other comments, thoughts on that? Okay, so we'll move on to the committee and standing program reports. And first on the list is an update from the 100% Renewable Energy Strategic Planning Committee with David and Sam.
Before I start, I don't know if you saw it, Keith. It looked like Rick maybe had a question or a comment about that last one, so I don't want to.
Apologies, Rick.
No, I just wanted to give a thumbs up. Yeah, every single person we've told about this Buncombe County project and about the fact that it's making money from the get-go, finance it's so low and all. Every person we've told all across the country in all kinds of positions, from like one of the top leaders in the World Wildlife Fund down, has been amazed at that piece of news, and it was news to them. And so I would say that is really a key thing to wave a flag about. I think it is much bigger win-win than people here realize, because here we got solar experts, all that kind of stuff. Across the country, I was kind of blown away. The guy who's the head sustainability officer for World Wildlife Fund, he was kind of like, really? And he should know that. So it's like, wave the flag on that. It's a big deal.
Thanks.
Great. So we'll move on to the 100% Renewable Energy Strategic Planning Committee with Dave and Sam then.
Sure. Yeah, I can start this off, and Sam, if you want to add anything, feel free to jump in whenever. We had a great meeting last week. Kind of got into some of the nitty gritties and really did some deep diving into really trying to define and come to agreement on some of the parameters of how we're looking at this strategic plan. You know, things like what time frame do we want to look at and use? What units do we want to measure? How are we, you know, what do we think about offsets? And so really kind of got to really do a deep dive into some of those. And I think we got some, made some good progress on that. We also, that sort of led into some other conversations. There were some emails going back and forth about that between meetings, but another really, I think, beneficial conversation got started from an email that Brad sent out about dual use solar and agrovoltaics. So we really had some good conversations surrounding that, which timed, it was good timing because I feel like there's some other things that are just getting started. So I feel like we're exploring that as a potential good piece of the puzzle of, you know, just putting solar panels on farms and trying to get a win-win situation for both farmers and for county and utilities, and kind of having some good benefits all around. I feel like those are kind of the big things. Sam, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to mention that the group has been working on a list of questions for Duke to help us with our planning efforts. And I know that, you know, energy is rapidly evolving, and there's this new Senate bill that's passed the Assembly that might change some things. But essentially we have a list of questions, and Jason, we're going to send those to you and kind of get your input, and then you might need to run the flagpole with your mayor, and then potentially also share with Tim Duff if you think that's a good route as well. So we've got a draft list of questions probably ready to send to you sometime next week that I want to get your perspective on.
Yeah, I'm not sure I need to send it up a flagpole, but I definitely need to add some flags to the discussion to answer the questions.
Sounds good. And have you had a chance to look at that document yet, or you
I haven't
probably
seen it
yet? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll send it to you next week once we finalized it. And then some things you might know off the top of your head, some things you might gain.
Should I have it?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I realize it's a Google Doc, and I don't know if you're on that strategic planning group email list, sir. So yeah, I'll send it to you directly early next week once we've finalized it.
Okay.
But essentially, you know, with Duke's leadership and being the utility, our efforts to achieve 100% renewable future are highly dependent upon Duke. So this is really, you know, these questions are intended to understand Duke's planning process, and, you know, how we can align with and also motivate some innovation there.
We'll run down the answers.
I think Brad had something to throw in.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that one thing that came up in the meeting was that, you know, our goal in this has been to work on the community goal, the 2042 community goal. But I know that Jeremiah is working on the, and Bridget, I guess, are working on the 2030 goal for the city and the county. And we had, I think, decided that we wanted to have some discussions with them about how they're actually keeping score and thinking about this, so that we don't get too far afield of how it's being looked at nearer term. And they're paying for a lot of this work anyway, so we need to have their perspective from that point also. So we'll be reaching out, I guess, right, David?
Yeah, we will. I'll reach out to both you, Jeremiah, and you, Bridget, separately.
So do we have any additional questions for the Renewable Energy Strategic Planning Committee? Okay. We get an update for about fundraising from Sam.
Yeah, so looking at the fundraising, of course, it takes money to pay for staff and to do the campaigns that we're implementing right now. So we keep pursuing different funding sources. I am happy to announce that just before this call, got a letter or email from the Dogwood Trust that they're going to fund our home repair program for next year and chip in some money for Energy Savers Network as well. We've been, over the past 3 years, we've had money from community action opportunities to do things like roof repair, deck, repair, electrical work, plumbing work, things like that when we go into a home and see that they need these sort of minor repairs. And some of that money's dried up. So we applied for Dogwood Trust and they're gonna, help fund this effort for next year. So that'll be awesome because we run in pretty much every home we go into, there's something wrong that needs repair. And this increases the health and the safety and affordability of the homes and mobile homes for these clients. So grateful to have that funding from Dogwood Trust. Also, it seems like the county might be getting near to its funding announcement related to the coronavirus recovery funds. I got an email about that today asking for some more information about a heat pump repair and replacement program we've submitted. So hopefully have good news on that sometime soon. And there's a group of local realtors through LOTSAR, the Land and Sky Association Realtors, that's looking to fund neighbor solar program. So more solar systems for low-income families. And then we greatly appreciate the county funding and the city funding for Blue Horizons Project and Energy Savers Network and Neighbor and all the other things. So we couldn't do this work without their support. So that is pretty much it. Oh, we have a little bit of money from Duke Energy to help with our Energy Savers Network as well. And we're in a pilot program with Duke in the third year of a pilot program to pay for energy efficiency measures. And the hope is that this program is so successful that they'll spread it statewide. And so, we're feeling pretty good about how that process is going, and their program manager over there, Evans Taylor, is happy with the work we're doing, it seems like. So, So essentially, it's a big puzzle to put together all these funding sources. So we're grateful we have the capacity and ability to do that. And of course, we keep seeking more funding to expand our work. Brad?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that every year for the last 3 or 4 years, Energy Savers Network has done a sort of end of the year funding campaign, make your donations to charity. And really our approach has been to argue that people want to give to the poor, help the less fortunate out, and also help solve the climate crisis. This is a good way to do some charitable giving, and so we'll be doing that again this year.
Sounds good. Oh, we also just we got a small grant from Bank of America and also another generous donation to support the start of a heat pump repair and replacement program. So we'll do maybe 4 systems with that, and that maybe set the foundation for the other money that might be coming too. So grateful that funds are flowing.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that summary, Sam. And are there any comments or any additional comments? All right. Well, next up is the Technology Subcommittee with Ben and Bill.
Thank you. Ben is at a meeting for several days, so I said I'd pick it up. We had a very interesting presentation from John Coulter from Advanced Energy, and with also Mark Oderson from Product and Services Manager, Residential Marketing Partners for Duke Energy. And John presented some studies that they've been doing for a couple of years, and they shared some findings from the Asheville heat pump studies that they've been doing. So there's a study of 3 existing homes is complete, and the final report for the 4 new homes study should be completed in the next several months. The existing homes, we're looking at 10 SEER 17 and 18 SEER ground source heat pumps. And they're trying to take a look, is my best understanding is, how can you use like cold weather heat pumps and get away from the heat strips and really try to do some really deep down heating without burning up a lot of electricity. The new home study is going to be variable capacity heat pumps. It's going to compare ductless, and it's also going to look at ducted heat pumps to see the differences. And there'll be 4 homes involved there. The goal is high energy heat pumps that can really produce down low without using a lot of electricity. The heat pump sizing, the envelope and the duct systems, tightness, insulation values, etc., are important. Moisture is important. So a lot of things are coming into these studies. There's a huge amount of data that John presented and then summarized. So I think we're going to try to get out of this. We're going to get out of this some good information on what type of design do you need when you use ductless, and how to really get the best out of this. So that is kind of a summary of that. Let me also mention, and I want to ask other people who are with us to comment. There was a Drive Electric Day that Dave was at, and he was sponsoring that along with his group. And I saw Rick and Judy there, along with a number of other people. It was very successful. The place was jammed. It was over around AB Tech, and people could drive cars, get information, and so on. And naturally, somebody walked up to me and said, by the way, do you know anything about solar panels? I'm trying to do something for our house. So here we go. So that seems to come up a lot these days with just a lot of people are interested, which is great. We're kind of over the hump on that, I think. So we're also talking to specific, I guess I would say, clients or customers, people around the city that have asked us to come up and talk to them about geothermal or heat pumps or some of those things. So we're kind of using our team as a group of experts to try to help keep these things moving ahead. So let me stop there and ask Dave, Rick, Judy, Brad, anyone else who was at that meeting. Do you guys have any comments or want to correct anything or say anything else about that, about our meeting? Okay. Anybody else? I guess I'll pass it back to you then, Keith. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. The next agenda item is the Community Engagement Subcommittee, which is Beatrice and myself are kind of leading that. And I can give a report, or if Beatrice, which would like to. So you don't have to hear my voice.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I was also taking notes, but maybe Sophie would be willing to jump in on that for a sec.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. So community engagement, we've had our subcommittee meeting, and Sophie and I have defined our tasks as we're going to be we're working on currently filling in like a 1-page overview of our community engagement strategy, and then we're going to have we're creating a more detailed plan. So that's just going to take a little more time, but it's coming along. Yeah, so that's basically what we've been working on in that subcommittee. Dave or Keith, sorry, if you wanted to add anything specifically about the subcommittee, you're welcome to, and then I can talk a little bit more about what we're doing more generally for community engagement.
No, that's good, Ed.
Yeah. So actually, I'm glad that I went just after Bill, because Sophie and I have been working really hard on this new program offering that we're doing called Home Energy Chats. And it sounds pretty similar to kind of what you all have been offering folks that are coming up to you with questions about, energy stuff. And I just want to make sure that we're coordinating on that, because yeah, Sophie and I have been doing this Home Energy Chats program, which is like a virtual home energy consultations that people can sign up for. Anybody can sign up for in Buncombe County who has questions about an energy upgrade or any sort of thing, if they're thinking about doing an upgrade to their home or possibly getting solar or geothermal, and they just don't know where to start, and they need some unbiased, insight into what's available, then they can do a meeting with Sophie and I. And actually today it just like exploded, and all of a sudden like people seem aware of it, which is really cool. Yeah, so other community engagement stuff, I don't know how relevant it is to this meeting, so maybe I won't do more in-depth update, but yeah, that's about all I have. Unless anybody else in the committee wants to add anything.
Beatrice, if I could make you an offer, what if you came to our next technology subcommittee group and just kind of gave us an overview of what you're doing? It sounds really interesting, you know, like you're getting a lot of business, and you could just tell us, here's what's going on, here's what we're finding. As you said, maybe we can cooperate on this thing and help each other out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll send you a note. I'll mention it to Ben, and why don't we maybe just count on it? You know, give us a little report on what you're up to. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
I had a quick question for Bill. Bill, I may have missed it. Did you have is that heat pump report available yet, or is it still in process?
Yes, there was a, I want to call it a slideshow or a presentation, and it was a PDF. And did it go to the whole group? Did anybody see it? Did anybody get it? Okay, I'll tell you what, why don't I make sure that gets sent out to the whole group? It's a very detailed explanation of what I did, a very short summary of what they found, you know, what the results were, where they're going, and all the data. So I'll do that. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, and any other comments or thoughts for the Community Outreach and Engagement Committee?
Yeah, I want to pat Beatrice on the back for a couple of really great electric vehicle videos she's put out.
Dave's my #1 fan now, so on YouTube.
Well, that's good. And if anybody, so one of the things we have been talking about is how to create videos to engage people. And if you've got ideas for videos that you think would be interesting for the general public, just mostly Beatrice know, but you can also let Sophie or I know, because we're working on the committee together. Just as products that we can put out there so people can get a quick introduction to whatever the subjects are, energy efficiency or certain capacities at the electric vehicles. A lot of different opportunities there. So just let us know if you've got a good idea or if you want to be a part of the video. Any other thoughts? All right. So program evaluation subcommittee, and that would be Sophie.
Yeah, so we have met 2 times and identified, first we did a program inventory of all the programs that we are working on. And the ones we have listed are Energy Savers Network, the general sort of community engagement that Blue Horizons does that Beatrice just talked about, like our online engagement, our newsletters that we send, individual consultations, the amount of time the staff spends on community engagement, essentially. As well as the Home Energy Chats program, commercial energy efficiency and outreach, the Solarize campaign, the neighbor to neighbor portion of the Solarize campaign, Appalachian Offsets, which is a Greenbelt Alliance program. And essentially, we're in the process now of identifying what within each of these programs we're going to be tracking. So for an example, taking Energy Savers Network, we're tracking the number of homes we've weatherized, the number of apartments we weatherized, the energy savings, CO2 reduced, average energy savings annually per home, total lifetime energy savings, the number of volunteer hours, and the funding for the program as an example. But each program that we're evaluating will have different metrics. And we hope to wrap this up into a report for the city and the county contracts that Blue Horizons project is funded to inform the next 6 months of our contract. So we're looking at what programs are working really well, where do we need to divert more resources, where should we spend less time, that kind of thing. We haven't done this sort of program inventory and looking at this type of data or metrics before for a lot of our programs. So it's a really good exercise, but it is very time consuming. But we're working through it. And I think who else is on this committee? Dave Erb, and I believe David King and Chris Pelrang. So thanks for all your work. I'm gonna mute myself.
So any questions for the program evaluation subcommittee comments? All right, so the next agenda item is the Energy Savers Network with Sam or program staff.
Yeah, I'm going to pass the torch today to Steffi Roush, the Energy Savers Network operations manager, and she's going to take it over. Go, Steffi.
All right. Hello, everyone. Some of you know me. I now work full-time for Greenbelt with Energy Savers Network. I'm the operations coordinator and in charge of volunteer outreach as well, but also do their website, as you know, as a web designer for the past 23 years. So I'm excited to report that we have averaged about 4 homes per week. But however, HACA, our Housing Authority project, has been paused due to COVID. So hopefully we'll get back to that eventually. And we are seeking more volunteers. We've got plenty of clients now. We really worked on outreach there, especially to the Spanish speaking community. We found a really good inn and worked with several organizations to get the word out about our services. So we're really bringing in the clients, but we need more volunteers. We're reaching out to schools and churches and businesses. Sometimes it's a great team building day. So I encourage you all, if you know of someone who might be interested or want to do a team day yourselves, please let me know. And you can just email volunteer@energysaversnetwork.org for that. We also need to fulfill a part-time position as a crew leader. We had Kelvin Bonilla from Honduras, who speaks wonderful Spanish with our clients. And then Daniel Suber also was our guy that worked for Housing Authority. And unfortunately, Daniel's leaving us and we need to fulfill that position with someone part-time. So if you know anyone who's interested in partaking in that, we would please get in touch. And last, I'm going to put in the chat a wonderful post that we posted about all the various energy savings that you can get or help a neighbor who wants to save on energy. That's on our blog on Energy Savers website, incorporating a lot of the things we talked about today, including energy chats. So all the things through Greenbelt Alliance that save people money and energy efficiency. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Steffi. Any comments or questions? All right, on to Solarize Asheville Buncombe. Sophie?
You can take that, Keith.
Great.
I know Sophie has her hands full there, as well as this is something we had arranged for me to provide this month's update. This is the final month for contracts for residential contracts to be signed. So we're staring down the end of the month with a deadline for our residential contracts. And so that continues to be momentum, and as a campaign is designed to do. But I want to go ahead and go back to the beginning. This campaign was launched early in the year and achieved what you see on the screen here, over 700 enrollments, which is essentially people signing up to learn more and potentially get a proposal. 153 contracts at last count. We always roll those numbers up. Contract means someone has agreed to self-fund a rooftop system, potentially batteries involved in that. And we've got some great numbers here. I think I mentioned on a prior meeting here that we've gotten over a megawatt, but it's at 1.18, as you can see there, of capacity, new capacity as a result of the campaign. That's again, those contracts being fulfilled. Produces 1.64 million kilowatts annually. These are just the computations of the amount of energy that's being produced here. On the utility bill savings side, that's more than $200,000 annually, 5.2 million over 25 years. This is getting close to $4 million in new clean energy development as a result of these, and a lot of avoided CO2. An interesting point here to make in terms of the volume and velocity of these installations is 102 were completed between the 2nd of June and the 13th of September. So as we anticipated, we knew there was going to be a capacity crunch. So we're working through that. And in terms of fulfilling potential additional contracts, the proposals that are out there, we have a deep dive workshop tomorrow that's going to be held for those who are looking at proposals and are trying to make a decision before the end of the month, for folks to get familiar with what's in their proposal and to talk directly to the folks who know the most about what's in their proposals. So we're really reaching a finish line on that, which has really been very fulfilling, and we're grateful for everybody to help that's helped publicize this. Shifting over to neighbor solar, you've heard it mentioned in a couple of occasions on this call today. Really, the community should be so proud of this because it's a pioneering effort to provide low and moderate income folks with solar systems, and through philanthropy and through government funding. And the government funding got us going here, city and county, and has put us on a course for more systems. Got 12 already that have been identified through a qualification standard that's been created. It's at the lower part of this slide you're seeing now. And but we think there's more on the horizon, and that more will come from private philanthropy. And you're going to hear more about what we've been able to raise as a result of this. And when I say we, there's some steering committee members and others who've just really been so helpful to introduce and open doors to potential funding sources. But I should mention, for anybody who's interested in learning more about this, whether it be businesses or individual donors or organizations, there's a chance for neighbor to neighbor solar to be a very sustained program. Solarized campaigns, they come, they go, they finish, they start, they finish. But a neighbor to neighbor solar concept here could be sustainable in construct, but fundamentally it's got to be sustainable in funding. And there's a huge opportunity here to make and continue to make this community a leader in this space. Very few of the solarized campaigns that were done around the country served this part of the community. They served an attempt to discount or to bring the price down of solar. But this is something that's unique, and it's thrilling to be a part of. So we hope that it takes root and continues. And the construct is there, and I can't say enough about the work that's gone into it. Sophie, Beatrice, and others to formulate this in a very unique way that fits our community. That's all I had, unless there are questions. That's our October update.
Michelle?
Michelle.
Hey, thanks for that, Ken. It's been really exciting to be part of that, particularly the neighbor to neighbor program. What can you give an update? What's the deadline for businesses in the business portion of the program?
Well, we've kind of blown past the enrollment side of that, August 31st. I mean, there's always a potential for someone to get on board and to have a discussion on the commercial side, the business side. This, they have a longer window though to complete a contract because of the complexity of commercial proposals and building design and other factors. So to answer your question, they have till the end of the year to sign a contract under the Solarize offering. In other words, the pricing that was created as a result of our competitive bidding.
So they would have had to already indicate, they already would have had to fill out initial.
Yeah, I think, you're a member of the steering committee, and thank you, Michelle, for that too. And we've talked about this, a hard and fast deadline. It's really hard to shut the door on someone if they really want to have their business nominate their property or their building. So I think there's been a couple that have trickled in. It's hard to imagine that we would say no way, but I do think we have to create an environment where people feel the momentum of the need to sign up. And of course, the pricing that was created as a result of the competitive bidding can't last forever either. So we kind of need to get everybody in who's going to get in.
Any
Thank you,
other
everyone.
questions?
I would just add that we're forming a subcommittee to start meeting soon to determine recipient or recipients for the community project that is part of this campaign. So we anticipate having about $60,000 to $80,000 to spend on a donated system or systems for a nonprofit in the community. It could also be rolled up into our Neighbor to Neighbor program, but we're forming a committee to determine the use of those funds and project selection.
I had a couple of follow-up questions. I was wondering on the contracts we have going, like how are we doing as far as like loans versus cash deals on those?
Phelps, that's a great question. And I've never seen that ratio. You know, when we do our steering committee calls, questions like that, I have to hear it myself. I don't have native knowledge of that, but that's one we can look into. Financing was certainly a critical component of many people's decision, as you well know. But that's a really good data point we ought to get to learn more about what that meant to individuals to get on board. Don't know the answer, short.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that would be a great question to get answered just as we really look at the effectiveness of the program going forward and doing more. And then, and it leads me to the question of just making sure we're holding everybody accountable to the pricing that was granted in the tier 8, because just looking at the slide, I see $3.96 million in deals and only 1.18 megawatts of solar. So I'm curious, that doesn't add up to 245 a watt. So I just wanted to be
I'll find out what's behind the numbers there. I can't speak to it because I don't do the calculations. Fortunately for you all, I don't do them. But let me find out how that rolls together, to your point. But I can assure you, in terms of our outputs, anybody who gets a proposal put in front of them will have that tier 8 number.
Yeah, that, and I totally.
And so maybe more a matter of the math on this.
The math on the slides. I totally assume that to be correct. I just, this new job I have is holding contractors accountable, and I was feeling like, as the solar expert on the community council, I wanted to just try and ask a few hard questions, because I'm really excited about what you guys have accomplished. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of jobs, and I'm really glad to see the jobs are. Most of them have already happened, because I think this end of the year crunch and getting everybody a meter and stuff is going to be tough. And I feel like the campaign was more successful than we even had hoped. So I'm glad to see we're getting the jobs done. And then just so then the final thing that might be good to follow up on is how we're doing as far as helping eligible people apply for the Duke Energy rebate. That would be something good to make sure we hold the team to the fire on that.
Yeah, and I know that's always a factor in the conversations that everyone has. This deep dive workshop tomorrow too would maybe open up some of those questions and answers. So I've got a ready pipeline to get back, and feel free to ask the hard questions. They're good ones because they help improve not only the campaign as it finishes off, but anything else in the near term. So yeah, expect me to follow up on those.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for everything you're doing.
Well, likewise, it's thanks to everybody who's gotten this done. These solarized campaigns only work when everybody, joins together, and that's, I think, and there has been some things here as these contracts have been completed in the installs. There's been, as you know, it's been a tough period. So nothing is perfect, to say the least, but we feel really good about the amount of volume that's been created, and we want to make sure everybody's very satisfied across the board.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Construction is inherently very messy, and I think yeah, I think it sounds like you're getting the jobs done, and you know, that's a big part of it. And then it's just sort of making sure going forward the savings are realized and that everybody. So yeah, that'd be great to get those answers.
And I would add, there's more to report out on workforce developments and some other pieces of this entire construct will continue to come together. So, you know, it's more than just a snapshot in time, that there's a real legacy here.
Excellent, thank you. At the last,
Hang on one sec. There's a question in the chat about the Duke rebate. So it was our understanding as the steering committee members that the Duke rebate was not ever supposed to be part of the marketing tactic for Solarize, because it is not a given. You know, it's a lottery system. It's completely random. I would say that when I had my proposal done, the woman I met with said that they would help with the process, or at least give me the information about it, but not to count on it because it is a lottery. Generally speaking, Phelps, most people are financing. And that is why I think if you do the rough math on that slide that we were showing, it does not equal 245 a watt, because as you know, financing incurs extra charges and you do pay more over the lifetime of the loan. So that would affect the price per watt, but great if Ken can get more detailed.
Yeah, we should be able to roll up, you know, what that ratio is, which is the way he asked the question, and certainly financing was a part of that. And I believe on the apples to apples, when people compare proposals, that Duke rebate, if it's not disclosed properly, can confuse people, as you know.
Yeah.
It starts to become apples and bowling balls, as they say, you know. So that's an important communication point, but I think we've come across that in a few places where we said, you know, you can't make that part of the arrangement that people count on.
And then I think Michelle made a great point in the chat too. Ken, if you could make note of that maybe we could send a communication to everyone who has signed a contract to remind them about the Duke rebate. Just maybe in a future campaign.
Well, and that same goes with the meter availability and some of that, but we were never really able, to my knowledge, to get a clear link that we could send to people, if anybody knows how to find that. Maybe it's occurred, to really say, here's what Duke is saying about this into November, right? But those could go together. Some information and being imparted on both those fronts, since it involves Duke.
Yeah, in talking.
Yeah, just send me an email with what you're looking for. So that's an ongoing issue that we have kind of with folks, is they're not getting something, they're not getting something. I'm here to help you try to find it. So if you don't let me know that you need it, I can't see if it's available and help navigate. So Ken, if you can send me an email with exactly what it is that you're looking for, I can see if it exists.
Okay, and I think this might have been something, Jeremiah, you brought it to our attention, and the installers, you know, we needed to convey it so that it's, you know, clear what the situation is.
Ken, if I don't know that it's an issue, I can't help try to navigate it, regardless of who brings it up.
Will do, thank you.
They should know how it works. I mean, it's because, I mean, the way it got changed to a lottery, it's a lot easier for it's a lot simpler it's a lot fair for everybody to apply, because you have like a week to apply now. And it should be like January 1st or January 3rd, and then starting then you have about a week, and then but you need certain things, like you need your unique ID number from the interconnection portal and stuff. So you need your installer to supply you certain basic information. And then the website's there, you can go to it right now, but it doesn't have an apply button, or the apply button is a dead link because it's like for the July 3rd application period. But it will be updated January 1st or 3rd or whatever. And there's like a webinar that Duke puts out, and there's some good information on their webpage. And
yeah, I think we're solid on that. I think it was more the meter, the crunch on getting. That's really what we were lacking, was a way to explain to people what the holdup is. So.
And so one option there, so actually, like, like not getting your meter can be an advantage in some sense, because I mean, so basically you can apply for the rebate as long as you didn't get your meter before greater than 90 days before the deadline, or before the application period opens. So like basically anyone getting a meter after October 3rd can apply in January. And then if you didn't get your meter till like December and you wanted to try to apply for the rebate twice, you could wait for a meter and actually apply in January and then apply again in July. So there's potential to like flip that whole
Right, the calendar flows there.
I thought, well, hey, you had to wait 2 months for your meter, but maybe you should wait 6 months and you can try again. So there's and especially as we go into the end of the year, if people are getting installed in December, I mean, they might just appreciate the opportunity to see how they do in January and then consider waiting till July for energization. So that could be something to, talk with Summit about, and just make sure they are keeping everybody's best interest in mind because I do think, whatever, sounds like we're doing great, but I do think it's going to reflect back on Blue Horizons, and it sounds like we're doing awesome. So, but I just wanted to provide, and I'm here to help if you have further questions or
absolutely
ideas.
Appreciate it. That's good
Thanks.
guidance, and it is helpful.
All right, that was a great conversation. The next agenda item is the residential and commercial EE project with Beatrice, Sam, and Sophie.
Yeah, I'll give a brief update here. I think we covered quite a bit in the program evaluation and community engagement updates, but the big update I think is we're continuing to work on and expand our home energy chats offering, and I finally created a web page for it, which I'll share my screen so you can see how beautiful it is. So people now can sign up directly on our website through a contact form, and we ask people to just give us a little summary of what they need help with. And we have some client testimonials here, and just a little bit about what we're doing, free unbiased energy advice and some of the topics that we cover. We've had 3 folks sign up just today. So I think some of our ads and distributing information has really started to pay off. We'll see if we keep getting 3 a day, but that's quite a lot to schedule. Anyway, let's see. Commercially speaking, on September 20th, we had a virtual webinar on commercial energy efficiency with presenters from Duke Energy and Land of Sky Waste Production Partners and South Face Institute. And we recorded it and I sent it around to everyone, I believe. And I thought it was great. I think it came together really well. We had about 7 attendees from businesses locally that I recognized. The most prominent one, I think, was Ginger's Revenge, which is a hard ginger ale brewery place here in Asheville. But I was really excited about how that came together and think it was a great success. But other than that, I have no other updates.
Any questions? All right, unless I've misread the agenda, it's now time for public comment and discussion.
Yeah, I have something, a comment. So as some of you may know, I've been working on climate for quite some time. And I've had many discussions with farmers. It's usually a very hard discussion to have on climate, unless you're talking to like Jamie Ager, of course, at Hickory Nut. They've been very supportive, and we been in talks with Farm Bureau, et cetera. But one thing I found is it's just coming out more and more that farmers can be a part of the solutions here. And there are opportunities for energy companies to work with farmers, and it would be a win-win for both. So for example, there's something called Agrovoltaics that someone had put in the chat, actually a YouTube video about it. You know, because farmers don't always want to separate some of their land just for solar or for wind. They want to, in some cases, you know, in this case with agrivoltaics, you can combine the two. So they can still grow crops, they can still have livestock and run tractors underneath of raised solar panels. And they do this in Europe, and they've started out west, but for some reason it hasn't taken a hold here. And it's something where the farmers would lease their land. They wouldn't use that necessarily energy for their farm. They could, but they really lease it to the energy companies themselves who need land. And so, you know, if energy companies are looking for land, the farmers have that land. The farmers also need money during the transition for climate because they're going to be dealing with impacts to climate, to, you know, on their farm. And so it's another income for them where they don't have to make that trade-off of land crops for solar. So it's something that I think, you know, I'm looking at your mission statement and noticing that, you know, it states, you know, collaborating amongst the partners, which is, you know, the county and Duke Energy. And I'm wondering if maybe there's a way we could create that program, you know, connecting the energy companies with the farmers to help make that take more of a foothold here. And then, of course, there's also carbon sequestration, which is another whole thing that's being taken up in Congress with the Growing Solutions Act, where they pay farmers carbon offsets by the energy companies to basically move to sequester carbon, to change their ways and use more resilient agriculture techniques. And so that's something that apparently they've shown through many studies that carbon sequestration is one of the best, most effective ways with the least cost to sequester carbon, because we do have to start taking carbon out of the atmosphere. It's not just a matter of reducing our emissions. So I feel like there's just so many great opportunities here, and bringing farmers into the conversation with solutions that will not only help them in mitigating climate impacts to their farms, but bring them income to transition and move them away from fossil fuel fertilizers too, with the resilient ag. So there's just a million things once you get into it, learning about it. I just feel like, you know, does anyone have any ideas on as to whether this would be something that your council would like to take up, or is there a better venue for this somewhere?
This is Chris Pellerine. You know, Phelps and other commercial solar experts may have something else to say on this matter, but my opinion is that, you know, these types of systems that could or would be installed, I'm not sure what size of systems are installed in Europe that you're mentioning, but, you know, they likely are grid tied systems, right? And it could just be a situation where the landowner, ideally it would be the farmer, would lease some of their property for that purpose, but that relationship would be between the developer, and those negotiations typically don't start until Duke or the other utility submits an RFP for new projects, right? And so once a large project is known that, you know, it could be constructed, then the developer starts to go look for land to build said project. And if those farmers do want to try to get into that space, and also, you know, these sound like much more expensive systems than, you know, more simple ground or roof mount. But, simply if the farmers were aware, and if those developers were aware of the engineering involved, then perhaps this could work. But it could be as simple as, perhaps those developers already have a group of people that they reach out to when it comes time to looking for land to build projects on.
I know in certain places like Ohio, there was actually like a group of farmers came together to work with the energy company to do this. I don't know if I can find that article again, but that was what happened there. But it's really not as difficult as people think. Like, we used to do overhead irrigation. My great grandfather was one that did it, in Alabama, was one of the first to do overhead irrigation. It's basically the same thing. And in some cases, I wonder if we could even combine, the water irrigation overhead along with the solar, and be on wheels to move it, across the field to different pastures. So there's just so much opportunity here. I feel like somebody should start thinking about connecting those dots. I just don't know how it's done.
So Steffi, I think this has been brought up in a couple of different ways with the 100% Renewable Strategic Planning Group or Subcommittee, and then also the Technology Subcommittee. And it seems like locally, it may be good to connect with Terry Wells. So I have a plan to have a call with her in November. She's a county commissioner who represents some of the more rural areas of Buncombe County and seems to really advocate for farmers. I love the links that David just dropped. I just looked at those. I did not even know those resources. So
Yeah, and that, I don't know. So that was somebody I was in AmeriCorps with 10 years ago. So that may or may not be still relevant, but be good to kind of start out there. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
In line with exactly what you're talking about, Steph.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like the Asheville microgrid group has been thinking about agrovoltaics. It is a little bit fascinating. I wonder where that does fit on our committee. I mean, is that something that and I know project advocacy is in our charter, but I feel like we're working on focusing down on what our focus is going to be. I mean, isn't that right? And I don't know exactly where that is in process, but
in the strategic planning committee, we've had some discussions about it, and the key thing is when we come up finally with some numbers on how much solar we need to put in, and some of that solar is going to need to be, in the form of sold back to Duke, where we retain the renewable energy credits, similar to maybe the landfill project. And I think agrovoltaics is a good opportunity because we are so land limited in Buncombe County in terms of the big solar farms that are just dedicated to solar. I think we got to do it.
One other thought I would share would be, again, kind of thinking about the county's comprehensive plan that's under development. I think it's going to be, we're going to be looking at all these growth development issues, but if we want to see a lot of renewables deployed in Buncombe County and the mountains, then it's also going to be, we're going to need to look at, the land use policies around that. Where is it permissible? Where is it not permissible? Currently, the county has a very pro-solar land use policy, and I think that's great, and that's the way it should continue. But as more land is utilized for solar, then these questions around competing land uses will come. This will become a bigger and bigger issue over time, right? Like, if you look at some of the reports that have been developed, when we look at like a high renewable penetration scenario, and like what does the country look like in 20 or 30 years from now with that, like solar and wind are pervasive, right? Like it's all over the place, right? Because we need a ton of it to so how to integrate solar and other renewables into the landscape in a way that's as harmonious as possible is going to be this bigger and bigger important issue we need to face. So I would just say, I think for the folks who are kind of interested in agrovoltaics, other kinds of things that can be done to integrate biodiversity into solar installations, whether it's for agricultural purposes or just for ecological purposes. Again, I'd encourage like this group to think about being engaged in the comp plan process to make sure we come out of that process with a set of very pro renewable energy policies, but ones which also encourage really great projects that do maximize the agricultural preservation and the biodiversity enhancement opportunities that go along with it. So I think a lot of renewable developers are already doing that because they're, a lot of them are real progressive organizations that care about this stuff. They're working with landowners who are interested in that stuff. But we probably also just need some supportive public policies to either strongly encourage it or maybe even require it to a certain extent.
I'm also curious if Jason from Duke, do you have any input on that? If you heard about this, is this something that Duke would be
Steffi, I have not.
Okay.
First I've ever heard of it.
Okay.
I mean, to Brownie's point, Steffi, and at the end of the day, for the most part, for these large 1+ megawatt systems, which I imagine we would try to be targeting with farm owners, it at the end of the day becomes a financial transaction. And if the developer isn't keen on how to design a certain system to meet the needs that we're talking about now, then they simply won't do it because, it quickly becomes financially infeasible. Is that a word? And so they'll just go with what they know, at least from my experience. Maybe there is a system in the US that we could investigate and find the developer to share knowledge, or at least choose them to bid on a specific project. But at the end of the day, it sounds like it might just be something that the developer could get more informed on to do more of those types of projects.
And by developer, you mean the solar providers?
Yeah, in my experience, that's typically how these large systems are built, the NextEras and iSun Fusion, combination of letter companies that are out there that are doing these large projects, that are the ones that are bidding on these RFPs from utilities when they say, I want to build a 2 megawatt solar system. Who wants to bid on this project, right? And at that point, it becomes a game about, cost competitiveness. And so if the developer isn't aware of potential benefits outside of simple, return on investment, then it may not, get bid on. And that's a much different process than, the process we're doing with in the city and county, right? Those are smaller systems than what I'm talking about now.
So Brownie, it sounds like through policy, this might be the way to go, is to encourage it to happen through policy. Is that what you were saying?
I think when it comes to a group like Blue Horizons, yeah, that's kind of what stands out to me, is that we should be making recommendations to the county commission, probably mostly county commission, not so much the city council, but yeah, let's make recommendations for supportive public policies to encourage this. Again, maybe in certain circumstances, even require it. You want to find that balance between, you don't want to create a bunch of policies that actually press development of renewable energy, right? Like that would go totally against what this group's trying to do, but you want to have good renewable development. So like just as an example, like the state of Illinois adopted statewide policies basically requiring developers to install pollinator-friendly vegetation when solar farms are built in Illinois. There's a huge issue in Illinois, huge industry. So they made that a requirement. And I think that was very smart because it's a fairly low-cost thing you can do, tremendous wildlife and agricultural benefits. So in that case, that was probably a smart requirement and probably something that we should consider doing in Buncombe County. And then there might be other things you want to incentivize that might be more costly, but maybe you create some other incentives so that the folks working in the business have some reasons to kind of give them a harder look, maybe try some things that haven't been done before or not as kind of commonly integrated into projects at this time.
If I could just say a few words. I really meant to just listen and observe and not so much make any comments, but this goes directly to an initiative that I'm very much immersed in right now. I've developed a proposal with my colleagues that are in the critical services microgrid group after pretty positive talks with UNC Asheville and Warren Wilson College. I think the way to look at agrivoltaics is very different from a solar park where you're got ground mounted. You know, you're talking about up to a dozen feet off the ground. So you have continued operation of the crops or pasture harvesting or livestock grazing. So you're looking at really a value of solar combination, much like in other states and utility commissions are passing value of solar tariffs, which in Maine or Kentucky or city of Austin, for example, find that anywhere from 10 to 30 cents per kilowatt hour is the value of solar. If you look beyond the strictly utility shareholder kind of least cost strategy, if you look at the consumer, particularly the consumer side of the meter combined with the social benefits, with the pollution reduction, particularly on farms where diesel fuels, tractors and other equipment do cause higher respiratory illnesses among farming communities that aren't recognized. So if you think about, I mean, currently the way that the State Public Utility Commission and the legislature have defined what Duke is doing, we're pretty constrained on agrivoltaics, but behind the meter, you can look at the full electrification of the farm, all the farm equipment, and kind of add up those loads. But what we're talking about doing with Warren Wilson and UNC Asheville is a 1 to 2 megawatt demonstration on Warren Wilson's part of their 1,200 acre sustainable agriculture and forestry research program. You know, we're basically talking about 5 to 10 acres and growing the kinds of crops that grow in the Western North Carolina. The agrivoltaics is kind of an incipient juggernaut from my perspective. It's being driven by other countries and other states in the United States, but it clearly is of immense value given just in Western North Carolina, where we have 1 million acres under cultivation. You're talking about an enormous income stream for cash-strapped farmers who are on a roller coaster every season of whether they're going to make cash flow. So you have to look at this as the combination of what they grow under it and can harvest and what they're getting as a stream of income. Currently, you're right, it's going to be behind the meter what they use. But if we can look at one of the things of this demonstration project is to look at developing on top of it what's called a digital twin, which is a digital asset management software that shows 3D and 4D over time. So we could literally show what the county could build out on the 1,000 farms that are in the county. It could easily generate half or more of the total demand, not just for all of the utility power most of the year, but for the transition of the enormous, I think it's 187,000 vehicles over time as they move to electrification, it would cover all of that as well. So I'm happy, I've shared this with Brad, and I know David has been privy to this, and I would be happy to share at some point if people are interested. I think it's an extraordinary opportunity for the county.
Thank you, Michael. And I would say I just passed along to Keith a bunch of links in an email regarding this and what they're doing in certain places out west and in Europe specifically. So you could even reach out to them and ask, you know, how they're doing it as well.
That's exactly right. I would also say it's not just for the farmer benefits and strengthening the rural economies. It's also to the fact that it is the distributed model is much greater for security, resilience, anti-fragility in the face of, you know, the nation is still in the grips of worry about cyber attacks, cyber crime. The US military has adopted the model to have every military base and facility islandable microgrids so that they can continue to operate even when the grid or pipeline crashes. Now, what they've found is that they're base can be an island operation while they're surrounded by a sea of chaos in the civilian sector. It makes perfect sense for us all to adopt this kind of distributed model. And why on earth, given that the National Security Agency and Department of Defense have adopted this, we are not seeing Congress looking at the full faith and sovereign backing to provide the funding to work with utilities and counties to basically make this the great build back after COVID. It makes so much sense.
I do think doing some, oh, go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to thank Steffi for that question. It's really good discussion. But we only have a minute left of our meeting. So if there's any other questions anybody wants to bring up, that would be great. I'll definitely come back to this. And great, Rick.
Sorry, yeah, I mean, I had something to throw in there, but we'll just take it offline. That's okay. Something just happened in the last couple of days that I think is worth bringing up here. And that since we're, a lot of this work that we're going to have to achieve is in getting people to high efficiency electrified HVAC in their homes, especially to make this grid buildable. And we just saw a quote that was shown to us by somebody for a high efficiency system for 2 tons, $28,000. And it was like, I mean, this is a mind blower, $28,000. I mean, we're putting in a system for my brother-in-law at something like, I don't know, well, $13,000, which is family kind of price, but 15, 16. I mean, and so people are out there, there's kind of this Wild West thing going on. And it's kind of a thing at this moment because there's some shortages in the marketplace. There's also just this thing of the average homeowner doesn't understand this stuff, period. And so they think they get more paper from somebody and it looks better. They go, oh, this person really knows what they're talking about. So I say this because it's more of a wake-up call for us, if nothing else, because we volunteered to be this HVAC committee on the tech group. But I think we're going to have to, as Blue Horizons Project, get some guidance out. Like the Solar Rise has provided guidance for solar. You can sort of see what can be done when you get a group thing together. And it's kind of out there for everybody to see, public knowledge. I think we're going to have to do something along those lines. It doesn't quite work. The same Solar Rise model doesn't work because people can't team up and do things all at once because you change out HVAC, over 20 years. There's a certain amount per year. But I think we're going to have to do something to provide solid guidance on that, including having some contractors who are willing to step to the plate and do prices that are same. Something like that,
Thanks, Rick. That's really important. I think that I can think of several ways that through the communications and outreach group, we can kind of get some products out there for people to reference. Well, we've used our 2 hours and I took many pages of notes and thoughts. Thank you, everybody, for being here. If our next meeting is November 9th. Got subcommittees meeting in between here and then, or now and then. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I thought the meeting was good. And just try to keep these good conversations going offline or not in the group. Appreciate everybody being here, and I look forward to seeing you online in the next month.
Thanks, Keith.